Welcome everyone to this Profile Tree podcast. In this episode, we're going to look at mistakes that small businesses tend to make when they first start their digital marketing journey. So we're going to look at it from different areas. So we're going to look at it from web design to SEO to then even marketing your business further with social media. And we're going to look at some things that businesses tend to do, and we're going to lead you the right way of how you can kind of avoid those mistakes, or if you make them, what the best next steps to take are. So we're just even to start off, I think most businesses, and in terms of small businesses, would start off their, say, online presence journey by starting a website. Renelle, in terms of mistakes that you find that small businesses tend to make, are there any that you see to come up more than once?
Well, absolutely. There's a lot of businesses that don't actually set a clear goal to what they initially want. So first point there really is, yes, their lack of clear goals and planning. So if you don't clearly define what your website is meant to achieve or the actions you want users to take, it can become really disorganized and just really confusing. So that's with poor navigation, messy structure to the mix as well. Visitors might not know where to go exactly. And that can really affect with not just SEO, but if people are coming from social media as well, that could, be a deterrent, and then you'll have an increase then with your bounce rates. So that's something that we don't want.
That's something I think that it's really clear, like across the board. Having like ran my own small business at a time, I think the reason that lack of planning sometimes can come into play for any business owner is because time is a resource. So like investing time in sitting down and going, what are my goals and my objectives and what's the whole point of this? It's like that time investment can be really challenging to find the time. But I think that even for, like a social media strategy, SEO strategy, website strategy, the best thing is to sort of demystify it and not make it complicated. Like something as simple as a document outlining what are the goals for my website for the next 6 months? What are the goals for my social media for the next 6 months? Because that sort of lack of planning is where it has potential across the board, I think, to go awry potentially. Would that be like relevant also, do you think, Abby, for in terms of SEO, like with planning keywords and SEO strategy?
Yeah, for sure, because I think you can kind of look at it from kind of two sides of a coin when it comes to small businesses. So if you think of a business that doesn't have a website yet, they might not have taken the time to look into what, say, for example, beyond, say, what type of website they're looking for, what content they have, what keywords they know they want to focus on, who their audience are. But even from the other side of it, say, for businesses that have existing websites, if they're looking, if they know, say, maybe deep down that their SEO is maybe needs to be improved, whether it's they don't see a large increase in, say, organic traffic. What I find some small businesses make mistakes with is that they'll just jump straight into, say, adding lots of content to their website or focusing on one, or say, one page, rather than, say, carrying out an SEO audit to see where their website currently is and what the kind of steps they need to take. But in terms of, like, say, Brunel, in terms of like content on websites, I sometimes see websites with a lot of content and see sometimes content very kind of vacant from websites. But how do you feel when it comes to that?
When I've devved a couple of websites before or tried to guide people through it, I did see an overwhelming amount of content. They think, right, keywords, 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 let's just fire this in here. Content that doesn't make sense, no quality, no structure. And they think that it's going to work for SEO, but it completely doesn't. It's a flop then. So that's basically what I think. And obviously we have to then fix up the content, and I have to explain, right, okay, you need to do this or you need to do that in order to make this look better. But yeah, I completely agree. There's so many issues with people just firing out content out there.
I think something that's really important across like website content and social media content is finding your niche and focusing on that kind of quality over quantity. Making sure that your presence, especially on social media, is consistent and frequent, avoiding kind of stagnant social media channels, whilst at the same time ensuring that there is a quality rather than just a volume. And that's something that's especially important, I suppose, as well with discoverability on social media platforms, and making sure, that your content is keyword informed and And that's very relevant, isn't it, Gabby, for SEO as well?
Oh, for sure. Like, I think where it's even changed now is even how Google has changed, in terms of what it looks for with SEO, so it's very much now looking for, like say years ago, if you had a good bank of keywords and a bit of content on your website and your website was well made, that was pretty much ticking all the boxes really that you needed in Google's eyes, or at least the main boxes. Whereas now they're looking for, does your content create value that, say, for example, that keeps someone on your website for a long amount of time? So then that's going to show that the content that you're providing is informative and is authentic. So I think even in terms of, with SEO, one thing I've experienced a lot is I think some businesses, when they approach SEO, especially if they're coming from, say, a background or an angle that they haven't really experienced much with it before, they don't see the open kind of benefits of it. But also at the same time, they think that, oh, I'm going to add, say, content to my website and then that's my website done for SEO, rather than realizing, yes, it's you adding content, but it's almost like an ongoing cycle that you have to keep going to ensure that that content's always meeting that value that Google's looking for. And I think probably the biggest area that I see websites, and Ronell, you might maybe agree with me here, that I see a lot of businesses missing out on opportunities is blog content, where they could so easily have a new piece of content that's going to strengthen a certain keyword, but also show Google that their website's, up to date and relevant.
Absolutely. I think as well, just on top of that, with the blogs, I do believe that it's also really good to share them on socials. What's your thoughts on that, Nuala?
I think any opportunity to backlink to your website is a positive and it's a win. I really think that, it's about finding a kind of content creation strategy that's sustainable. So say, for example, if you're spending and investing a lot of time on creating blogs, why would you not share them on your social media platforms? Because that's a post, and we're trying to, find that frequency and consistency, which is also good for the algorithm, in whatever platform it is, you're promoting the content across. I think, especially if you're creating blog content that, with those longer kind of tail keywords that are a little bit more niche or specific, it's really good as well in terms of like sharing on LinkedIn for thought leadership and positioning your business, as an expert in industry, and also then directing traffic back to your website. I think something that's really important as well is, making sure that you're resharing the content to the platform that's appropriate with the appropriate messaging. So something that I find with a lot of businesses, that I would work with would be this anxiety about just being present on all the platforms, like I have to have a presence on every single platform. And what that actually does is it dilutes the messaging and sometimes I think makes it even harder to reach their target audience. So if you're going to reshare blog content, what platform is the most relevant based on who you want to see that blog content? Who would it be helpful for? Who is it a resource for? And then backlinking from there, because I think that then means that you're more likely to leverage the backlink and leverage the traffic rather than just putting it out wherever for the sake of it. Um, I think as well, that the kind of processes that I chatted about there a wee bit earlier, kind of, okay, if you create this piece of blog content, how then can it be repurposed for other platforms as well? Just wondering, from an SEO and website perspective, what are your sort of thoughts then on the integration of keywords in both the social media content, the blogs, and then on the website? And what would be, in your opinion, Gabby, the kind of best practices for that?
Oh, well, there's a couple of different ones. Well, even just to piggyback there off what you were saying, even in terms of, sharing blogs to social media, like even in, from the Google Helpful Content update in October 23, where they said now that they're going to value, say, traffic coming from LinkedIn or Reddit as two of their main example trusted websites. So say if a business either operates B2B, or even if the business owner or team member uses LinkedIn personally, sharing blogs and driving traffic back to to their website, that's going to be kind of like a big tick, when it comes into Google's kind of eyes of their SEO performance. But in terms of like keywords with, say, like social media and the website itself, one thing I think a lot of people don't realize is that the power of video is particularly with YouTube, because YouTube's the second biggest search engine after Google. So keywords play such a strong role with that, not only through, say, YouTube search, but even the fact that YouTube search results come up in Google search results. So it's opening up the potential brand awareness that your business can find you. But even then, say, working with that video content by embedding that video, say, in a blog on your website or on a page of your website, it's almost like it snowballs from there, because if you have a video, you're not only got the benefit of having that YouTube connection to your website. If that video is even, say, 2 minutes long, if somebody watches that video and then reads your blog, they spent more time on your website, so that's a big tick for Google. So I definitely think when it comes to the power of keywords with social media and with the website, I think there's triple opportunity there for getting a good bit of growth. But even Renell, in terms of, like, say, like the development of websites and the kind of implication of keywords within it, would you kind of agree with that?
I completely agree with that. And the other point that you made there, which is very interesting, of course, with the embeds of the videos, I see a lot of people making mistakes by just uploading the video onto the website itself, not realizing how much storage it actually, consumes. And then that's what I always tell people, like, just imagine it like your mobile phone. If you put too many videos, or if you record so many videos and add so many photos, it'll clog it up. That's basically what that's doing for the website. And then they start to wonder, right, why is my performance so slow? Why is this, why is it not ranking well? Why are people bouncing off the website straight away? So yeah, no, that was another solid point as well, which is to have embedded videos. And I think that'll be really good for social media.
In terms of people like choosing a website when they're starting out their business, like, what would you say the benefits of, say, like a few different platforms are? Like, say, for example, if someone was coming in and they just opened like a small little, they want to open like a small little e-commerce shop where they sell their artwork, for example, like, what site would you recommend that they, or what host would you recommend they build their site on, just out of nosiness?
Yeah,
So,
no, no, here, I'm actually glad you said that. I did work with a client who had like a bit of an art sort of website or shop. She was using Wix. So her platform was pretty good for it. She had the best plan as well. So it was enough storage for any of the products she had on the website. Of course, there's also Squarespace. Now, I only recommend these platforms more for the fact that they're easy to use. It's just a drag and drop website builder. Especially if you want to do things yourself as a business starting off, it's best to just use those platforms. But if you do want to go for a more complex route, I wouldn't say complex route, but if you want to go for something a little bit better, then there is the likes of WordPress as well. And then, it has Elementor, Divi as well. But it might be a little bit harder for you to manage, especially if you are just starting off. So hopefully that answers your question as to, what sort of platforms to use.
it does, because I think that is another common sort of mistake or error that a lot of business owners feel, that they have to jump in at the deep end and start out with these big complicated, say, website builds like a WordPress site. I think it's good or helpful or beneficial for people to hear that sometimes the simplicity is the best place to start off. I would say the exact same thing with like social media platforms. Like at the moment, if we're looking at the top trending platforms for 2025, number one in terms of the UK is WhatsApp. And we have Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, TikTok. So, sometimes it's about keeping it simple, going, okay, rather than build a presence on all these platforms, which one is the most relevant to me right now? Well, if I was starting like a business, for example, that I provided, say, like a service, like appointments, I might go, well, WhatsApp's really popular at the moment, so I'm going to do like my communication with clients directly through WhatsApp maybe, or I might just have a Facebook and Instagram page because it's easy to connect those through the Meta Business Suite and manage them from the one space, rather than, I feel like it's complicated with loads of different platforms. And I think that that's a really key takeaway for anyone, starting out their business, is find that simplicity and find the platforms that work, and don't feel a pressure to be everywhere, because no one can be everywhere, even with all the will in the world, I think.
I definitely think you're right as well in terms of, say, like from an SEO point of view. An SEO, say, both because this would completely relate to what you just said, Nuala, but I think even in terms of your website, it's also understanding who your audience are. So say, for example, and Renelle, this might be something that you maybe come across an awful lot, is in terms of having a mobile, not having your website not mobile optimized, because same for the fact that Google now has kind of put a focus in terms of that they've shifted in terms of their indexing, that it's going to be mobile first. So if it's a web, say a business that has a website that's kind of been created maybe initially with like a desktop really only featured theme, it's going to affect their audience. The fact now that so many audiences will use mobile first, but if their design hasn't been used, even in terms of the SEO of it, if it's maybe say slow loading, or it's like say poorly formatted, that's just going to give a negative experience, to that user. So not only then are they not going to spend as long as the website, that's then going to be a big hit against their SEO. But then even for that business themselves, if they feel like they can't navigate around a website, even whether say both mobile or on desktop, that if the business hasn't thought of their audience and how they want them to navigate through their website or what they want them to get from it, then they're effectively turning their target audience away from their business with that per experience.
That's the thing. Like, a lot of people just think, right, okay, it's all about the look of the website. They're not actually thinking about anything else. Yes, your user experience is good, but also think about your mobile. A lot of people overlook that straight away. Like, from the people that I've talked to, oh, Renelle, how could I make this the desktop version look nice? And I was like, but you're not thinking about the bigger picture. You need to have a look at your mobile as well. So we need to have a look at the performance for both of these. So that's what I see is overlooked quite a bit. So you're right in saying that. I mean, that's just another point that I wanted to put out there. That yes, guys, always check your mobile, and on top of that as well, make sure that it's not just all animations. It's not just the way it's going to look. Have a think about the sitemap of that website. Where do you want to direct the audience? Do you want them to go to a blog? Do you want them to go to a specific service page, or do you want them to go to a contact page? Think about your map. That's how I always like to view things before I start designing a website fully. Think about your plan.
Something that the word mistake is so loaded, as in it's like, it's not a mistake, it's an opportunity. But I see, especially with social media, this huge kind of like a stagnant presence, like you mentioned earlier, like Gabby, like uploading a blog and thinking that's my SEO done. I don't need to do anything else now. I kick back and chill. And I think that, social media, it's so challenging already with algorithms that are so difficult. Like the TikTok algorithm is so needy. It wants content all day, every day. We're struggling already, against algorithms. If businesses are having, a social media presence where they're posting once every 3 weeks, it's just not enough to be discoverable. And I think, again, that's where we think you need to think back to a plan or a process or a strategy. As much as it might take that wee bit of investment of time in the beginning, it's also really important for the sustainability and down the line. So whether it's, saying I'm going to post consistently twice a week, depending on the platform, with Facebook, the Facebook algorithm, I think arguably wants at least 1 to 2 posts a day, ideally. The same with Instagram, potentially 3 to 5 posts a week, if not stories every day. It's finding that frequency and consistency that keeps you both present, discoverable, but also that's sustainable, so that you don't feel burnt out and like you're beholden to social media algorithms all the time. In terms of like SEO and optimizing content on a site, Gabby, how frequently would you recommend, that businesses look at that, like in their strategy?
Yeah, well, I would fully agree with you that, and it's kind of like you said, when say the fact that we're talking about today, like website, SEO, social media, they all have to work together to create that kind of ultimate strategy for a business. But I would definitely agree with you in terms of, say creating blog content for your website. Although if you were doing a blog a week, you would be giving your website a big boost. If you find it that you only maybe have enough time to just maybe start off doing a blog a month, that's a sustainable strategy that you can set up for yourself and build up from there. But in terms of optimizing content, I would say, even carrying out maybe an audit, say using like platforms like Uber Suggest or SEMrush, maybe even every 6 months. But I think where a lot of businesses don't realize the biggest kind of opportunity for them to be able to effectively optimize their business for SEO in a very kind of quick manner is with their Google My Business profile. Because like that helpful content update I mentioned earlier, that Google brought out in October 23, they're now focusing on how they can authenticate businesses. And one area is your Google My Business profile. So say even if you made sure that your contact information and your business information and you've added as much content as you can, even with that, say if you were doing a blog a month, even if you got into a strategy that every month you're going to add five or so Google images, add a little post update and push for reviews each month, even adding that into your strategy, if you don't have time to optimize your kind of main content, that's another little added bonus that is just going to kind of put a bigger spotlight on your business, from Google in a more positive way.
Renelle, how often would you recommend auditing a website?
Well, for me, anytime that you make any changes to your website, I would audit it just to make sure that all those changes actually happened. One thing that I can actually see people missing out on are metadata. That's with your meta descriptions and your meta titles. And some people are also missing out on alt text as well. So it means that their website isn't accessible to some people. So that's the way I like to look over a website, which is audit it. Maybe let's just say in a couple of months' time. Let's see if that actually did make an impact onto your website. Did your SEO score increase? What's your domain rating like? Do you feel like you've got enough organic keywords coming into the website? What sort of keywords are you now ranking for? Are you making sure that you're using short tail, medium tail keywords? So that's what I think you should do. Audit it maybe just twice, like every 2 months or 3 months, if even, just to get a full look over the website.
Something I think that there's a lot of opportunity across all three topics we're kind of talking about: social media, website, SEO, is for especially for smaller businesses, is that consistency in branding, personality, and communication. Because what makes a small business stand out against, say, the likes of giants like Ryanair, Marks and Spencers, those types of businesses, is their USP, their unique selling points, which is their personality, branding, and that they are a small business. There's a lot of power in that, and a lot of people will go to them because they are a small business. And I think if I was starting out from like day one, if I was creating my own business, I'd really work on creating that kind of strong like presence, as in, who are you, what's your tone of voice, and what's your USPs, and how do you communicate them across all of your presence in your keywords, finding your niches in your website and in your social media. Because I think there's gold to be had there, because it's a really nice opportunity to showcase who you are and what you do. And I think sometimes, again, creating that or planning that takes a little bit of strategizing. It takes a wee bit of time at the get-go, rather than going, because 9 times out of 10 people who run their own businesses are very passionate, creative people who are ready to jump in and get started. But that little bit of space to go, let's plan this and actually, have like a process behind it, so that then we have consistency across our the entirety of our digital presence.
Yeah, I would agree with you because, like, I know I've seen businesses before that say, for example, have had like really nice, like, because I think, in the landscape of businesses now, there's so many that it is hard to try to stand out. So if you find something that makes, gives you that unique selling point, you should push it. But I know in my experience, I have found businesses say on social media and have thought, I really like their aesthetic, I like their vibe, but then you'll go to their website and you'll find that they haven't carried that across, that you kind of feel like you've lost that a little bit. And I always wonder, is that something that should almost be plan from the website out, so the branding starts from the website and goes straight out into the social media rather than creating a social media presence with it and then trying to see if you can backtrack and put it into, because like say even in terms of SEO, the keywords that you could drive, from even like the kind of presence that you build could make your brand more easily searchable through just your own kind of unique keywords. But it's always just been something I've wondered, when I've seen examples of that, did they not implement it in their original website kind of design or when they're kind of laying out the blueprints for what they wanted to do? But um, Renelle, in terms of that, would you like in terms of like say having that unique selling point for websites? Do you find that it's hard sometimes for businesses to kind of get that message across, and that's why maybe they kind of take it more towards social?
I would say so, yeah. Like even when it comes to the starting point, a lot of people don't actually plan their logo, their branding, nothing. You know what I mean? So that's what you were saying, Nula. People just jump straight into it. Yes, you're energetic, ready to go, but that's the problem. A lot of people miss out on that, and then you're already going. But okay, I don't actually have any branding. So whenever you're uploading on social media, whenever you're doing your SEO or anything like that, start to wonder, right? Okay, I don't have a structure here. Now I'm lost, and that's one of the common mistakes I would say people run through. I don't know. Would you agree with me there, Neela? Would you say a lot of people have got a lot of inconsistent like images or captions or anything like that content, social media content?
Um, I would, and I think it comes from all the best intention in the world, as in, say, for example, a business owner is like, I was in this position when I had my own business. You're choosing between a client, a customer, or your social media digital presence, you're going to prioritize the client or customer, So it's about that time, setting out the time for yourself, which again is the hardest thing to do because when you're a business owner, 9 times out of 10, you also have a family and you'll also maybe have like hobbies and things on the side. And you're trying to juggle all these balls in the air and try to organize and also decide in the moment which one should I prioritize. And I think that getting in the routines of um having like a strategy, a planner, consistency is it there's almost then freedom in the discipline, as in I set aside 3 hours on a Monday morning to do my organization planning and content across my website and social media. What happens if you're sitting down in that structured time is then you notice if there's inconsistency and you can change it or address it or go, oh gosh, I'm using an old logo on my website, but I'm using my new logo in Canva on my content creation. I should change that. You actually create space for yourself to notice those things. Whereas if you're just here, there, everywhere, throwing things up, that's where it's hard to notice those things. And I think that that is one of the hardest parts. But I do believe that like the long-term sustainable kind of payoff is really worth it. It's just getting into the routine and the discipline of that routine essentially to then notice those inconsistencies. But I really agree with you what you said there, Gabby, that it's almost a good practice or good, attitude to have to go, let's build from the website out, especially when it comes to branding. I wish we had Dylan here because then we could ask him we could ask him his opinion. But I really agree with you. I think that is a good strategy, a good way to go, because then you can use that kind of branding in your Canva brand kit and your, in your assets and your content creation then.
One thing that I sometimes have seen, say actually kind of coming back to that point about, like with the website design is like I've spoken to businesses before who have had very simplistic, very minimalistic website designs because that's the way, say, maybe the owner or that's the way the branding looks. And you'll talk to them, about how, although the website looks great in terms of SEO, there's not enough content there. There's not enough keywords or data just to kind of push it further. That I sometimes think that one mistake in a way that I think some small businesses can make is not being kind of open to adapting from, say, what their original design was. So say, for example, if they don't have more than 200 words on a page, that's going to affect their SEO. So if you're looking at a homepage with only 3 lines of wording on it, that's not going to be a homepage that's going to rank very high. So I think it's, as a business being aware that although you might have an initial kind of plan or design in your mind, it's knowing then as you take into those other kind of components of, say, SEO and social media and everything, that you can adapt with it. Because I think that's the hardest thing with, say, with SEO algorithms, with social media algorithms, even say Renell as well, probably in terms of how website builders change and themes change and plugins are introduced, that if you can't adapt with it, you're going to feel stuck and wonder why your business isn't moving with everyone else. So I definitely think that's something that, small businesses, owners or teams need to kind of always, take, at least keep in the back of their mind somewhere.
And that's the thing, is that we all feel it, marketing changes every day, constantly, which makes, like when we work in marketing, so, we're on the ball in terms of like keeping up to date with what's happening and what's changing. So for a business owner who's then also focusing on running their business, this idea that it's constantly changing, they need to be adaptable, like I would imagine, can almost feel like, oh, overwhelming. And it's that thing of giving yourself then the space and the time to even, maybe tune into a podcast like this that will, help keep you up to date with what's changing and what's going on, things like that. Because now we are in a world where if you run a business or you have your own business, you're also the full stack marketer for the business and the accountant, and you're wearing so many hats. So it's giving yourself the space to actually wear those hats and learn as you go and be adaptable.
I think the hardest thing for, and Nilla, you might agree with this, and even Renell, even in terms of, say, when you're working on websites, say for clients, or if you're talking to clients who are building their own websites, this could even be something that they experience. But I think we now are in that kind of environment that, because there's so many businesses out there, we're all, lots, like, businesses and even just marketers and everything, we're all kind of looking for that kind of quick result of, so say if in terms of SEO, like I've talked to business before, have said to me, we added a bunch of keywords yesterday. Why haven't we seen, why are we not number one in Google kind of thing? And that's what I always say to saying from SEO, and you can both give your kind of input in terms of, what you think about this. But when it comes to SEO, the way I always kind of describe it is that, it's SEO is a bit of a long game. It's a marathon rather than a sprint. So you could, yes, you could spend allocate some time today to sit and put the best content that's filled with keywords and links and everything, internal links, backlinks, all of the great kind of SEO components. But it could still be a matter of months before you see the benefit of that. But at the same time, if you stick with that, that's just going to and make those consistent improvements. Yes, it might not be an overnight success, but it's going to ultimately put your business so far ahead in the, for the lack of a better term, SEO race, that you're going to be, miles ahead of businesses who maybe never took it seriously or never just, got into that strategy themselves. But even Renell, just like take it to you first. Do you find in terms of like building websites, some small businesses can feel a bit frustrated that it's not maybe going as quick as they want it to go?
I've had a couple, yeah. It's just that they expected quick results. Like, oh no, like what's going on here? Nothing's happened. I was like, gotta wait. It's a waiting game, and even like I always tell people as well, you know, if you add a blog page to the website, that invites more keywords, and then they're like, no, I don't see the benefit of having a blog on my website. Okay, fair enough. I understand, it can take some time to make that's why, as you said there earlier on, Nuala, digital marketing is always changing. That's why we have all access to these AI tools as well, where you can go off and create a blog if you need to, proofread it, of course, and then just make sure everything looks okay before you upload that. So yes, no, Gabby, just on go back to your answer or question there. Sorry. Yes, no, I do see a lot of smaller businesses getting really, really frustrated knowing that, okay, uh, with their socials as well, like they're not promoting their website. That's why there's another one, and they haven't added the correct keywords onto their website. The content's not relevant to what their business is. That's why. That's another reason as to why their business isn't being seen by Google. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but yeah.
I think going viral really changed people's perspective of ongoing consistent content marketing, because people now not have it's not an expectation that every post will go viral, but because for some content creators that happens where they have, a post that goes viral. Now we have this expectation that if we're investing any time in content marketing, every single post, web blog should go viral. And 9 times out of 10, people who have experienced that kind of viral phenomenon have had a consistent ongoing presence first, and something has happened to build up and lead to that. Um, I think that what happens for a lot of business owners is that it's about the sustainability and longevity that's the problem, not necessarily the content itself. So they'll get these bursts of posting and having a really great presence and starting to see the results and starting to see engagement and starting to see an increase in followers. And then something happens and like don't have the same time that they can invest into social media. Um, I see that a lot, and I see as well kind of then almost frustration of, oh well, I didn't increase my followers, so I just don't have the time, I'm not going to bother. And that's the biggest challenge, I think, in terms of wanting to see the engagement rates increase quickly and the followers increase quickly. It again, you hit the nail on the head there, Gabby. It's a marathon, not sprint. It's not going to happen overnight, even if you are, even if you're running paid ads, even if you're doing PPC, it's not going to happen overnight. And if you expect it to, you're setting yourself up for a fail from the get-go. So you're not even giving yourself the opportunity to grow because you're expecting something too quickly. And I think it's all about finding what's realistic and sustainable and holistic, rather than trying to force expectations on your social media channels. We're all battling against algorithms, so it's going to take a bit of time. It's not unfortunately going to happen overnight, although we wish it would. I'd be delighted if I was able to work with someone and the next day be like, oh, you're viral, great. That's you, off you go. But it's about chipping away and keeping at it.
No, I fully agree with you, because I think, I think it's like, say, platforms like TikTok where you can have, like, speaking as someone I had one video randomly hit like 40,000 views and thought I'd become a social media influencer, to then have a following video come up and it only hit like 300. And I thought, well, I guess that's that dream over. But I think, with that, because I think every business is looking for that viral opportunity, that you can grow resentful towards it. If you have one post that does well and another post doesn't do well, you're just kind of like, well, where's the point? And then that's where the inconsistency creeps up. But the way I always look at it, even in terms of how it's like the SEO, is that even if you think of those businesses who have their viral moments are still just like what it was like, say, 15 years ago, of someone's 15 minutes of fame. Yes, you might have a viral moment, but you need something to kind of like you said earlier, they probably already had a pretty strong existing presence up until that point, but you still need to have that groundwork of a good website, strong SEO, and a strong social media presence to keep you going with this elite, maybe not the same peak momentum, but the same kind of consistent momentum after that. So then that viral opportunity could lead to another one down the line, but you've still got that, possibility of going down the line, rather than feeling like you're just giving up because you're not hitting those viral moments every time.
And that's where I think with social media, the gold is in the opportunities, like the kind of like lighthearted or evergreen content jumping on trends, because trends give you more potential to, go. I hate saying that phrase, go viral. I feel so cringy when I say it. I don't know why, but there's more opportunity there. It's also a way to sort of take a format, adopt it to your business and what you do, and it not be a heavily promotional piece of content, because we need to keep that balance as well on social media, of not just constantly promoting, here's my product, here's my service, here's my product, here's my service. So like I think that those wee opportunities are great, like looking at what's viral or trending. Is there an audio or like a format that's trending at the moment, and how can I adopt that for my business so that then I have that frequency and consistency. I'm current and up to date, but I'm also giving myself potential, to go viral. I just hate saying it.
I was gonna ask you now though, say in terms of like, we would talked about how like algorithms change. Do you feel the way websites are built is gonna change, in terms of say like even the fact that Google's now focused on mobile first, do you think that's gonna kind of sidewipe, how traditional websites have been built to date?
I would say so, yeah, especially with our attention span nowadays as well. That's one where if that website doesn't load, I'm out of there, So they're really thinking about performance, and then on top of that as well, since you've got these AI website builders coming in, what does that mean? What do we need to do now in order to really push our current websites? So yeah, yeah, I would say so. And as you say, Google's more focused, isn't it, with the mobile stuff. There are quite a few mobile users, as you said there. So yeah, that's what I would say, or I would think about that.
Well, I think we've had a really in-depth, really great discussion today. Lots to take away. And of course, as always, if anyone listening to this has any further questions or wants to ask about anything we've talked about today, feel free to send us a wee email or get in touch. Thank you both so much for your time, and think we'll wrap it up there.